Hello everyone, and welcome to Over a Brew. In today's episode, we are going to explore the topic of digital wellbeing, and specifically how further education colleges support and safeguard the behaviours of young people in online spaces following adverse experiences. I'm joined by my colleagues from Coleg Cymoedd, Karen Owen and Carol Rowlands from our Wellbeing and Safeguarding team.
So I know you've both been dabbling over the years with different digital interventions with sort of safeguarding and wellbeing. What positive experience have you had with learners when it comes to sort of using digital or helping them be supported with digital that you found to be really influential in giving them what they need?
There was a program on the VR set, a boxing program, and the learner was able to put the VR set on and just thump away at the air, you know, rather than perhaps somebody else or a wall, because previously that's what they'd been doing was hitting a wall. And yes, they were able to sort of release that anger, and then I was able then to work on the grief, and that was invaluable. You know, it was really good. And the learner, months later, because you know it took a while, they'd come in and say, "Can I put that thing on my head?" And I'd be like, "The VR, yes." And it was a game changer for them because, you know, it was done in a safe, controlled environment, wasn't hurting anyone, wasn't hurting themselves. And then we were able to sit down later after each sort of punching session, and they were able to express then how they felt, and it was a game changer. And it was one of the first times I'd ever used the VR, and I was thought, my God, this is a fabulous tool to help with well-being. Yeah. And then after that, I used it with a lot of other learners in different ways. Like I had a learner that was really, really anxious and found it really difficult to regulate their emotions. And we had, I think the program was called Nature Treks, and they would put it on and they would just they liked the forest, and they would just be transported to the forest. You could almost see physically their body sort of, you know.
Just a decompression.
So that was a game changer for me in the way I worked.
So the VR really helped them with like emotional regulation, and then allowing you to do your job in terms of helping them support and process their emotions and what we've got. Carl, anything from you?
Yeah, I think like obviously for us now, you know, social media and things is a massive thing these days. But I think for us with our sort of student app assistance like program, you know, the app that you can use, I think that's a massive plus and a massive positive for our learners, because you know, some need that support, but sometimes don't actually want to go and speak to somebody they don't know face to face. So it gives them the option to be able to have maybe a telephone conversation, to be able to have that conversation with like a counsellor, you know, a professional, somebody who, you know, can offer them a bit more support than we can over, you know, like a chat function, or just sort of going on there and being able to use like the different sort of workshops and things, you know. I think it's really good because as an adult, like, you know, you go and speak to somebody face to face, you don't gel with them, you're not going to speak to them. So being able to do it over like the chat function or just on the phone and not having to be face to face with someone, I think has been a massive plus for us. And I think we've seen a really big like uptake on that now. And I think when they realise actually they don't have to go and see somebody face to face, and they can have that option and can log on and speak to somebody at any time, day or night, I think that's been a really like positive and a plus for us. And knowing then as well that even if they can't access us, they've got somebody else they can go to. So there's always somebody there that they can access for that support, or, you know, if they're in crisis. So I think that's been a massive thing for us. I think that's been a really powerful tool then to be able to use with our learners.
I think with you as well, obviously, because both your roles, there's quite a high expectation, and you carry quite a heavy emotional load, both of you, dealing with, you know, the challenges that learners bring to your door. Knowing that they have these alternatives helps you to manage your own expectations and your own sort of personal lifestyle approaches, to know that there is an effective mechanism of support away from your provision on a day-to-day basis in the college, that, as you say, if they are in need, there are these options available to them out of hours as well.
You know, if something goes wrong with a learner, whether it be 12 o'clock at night, they need to speak to somebody and they need to speak to somebody then, it's hard for them to wait until they come to college. So knowing that if they do need to speak to somebody, if they do need support and guidance, is something there. And it's, 24/7, 365 days a year. And I expect, especially through the 6 weeks, it is really, really good to know.
And I think, they obviously, if there's an issue and something's been flagged that actually needs to be raised, then that is flagged to us then. So we're able to then pick that up with our learner. So we're able to offer support in-house or then signpost out as well. So it's been really useful. I'm very much an advocate now for, as soon as, my finish time comes, that's me done for the day and everything is off, and just to be able to protect myself, because I think if I can't protect myself, then I'm not going to be any good to the learners the next day or in weeks to come. And I think, when you start a job like this, you do feel like you want to kind of be able to save every learner and be able to solve all their problems. And that's just unrealistic, when I think, you've got to be able to go home, park and then be able to start the day afresh the next day. I think that's really important for our own mental health and our own well-being, that we're able to switch off, do something that we enjoy in the evenings and then be able to come back and start afresh. And it's difficult because I think some learners struggle with that. They don't get that we are not available 24/7. So, we do get messages, but over the weekend. But for me, it's important that my stuff is off, so when I pick that up on a Monday morning, and I'm none the wiser to that conversation, to that message over the weekend, which sometimes can be hard. But I think for us, it's being able to say, right, this is what is available to you, this is where you need to go, but also building resilience in those learners, because we're not always going to be there. So they need the resilience, the strategies that we've given them. They need to take that then and use that then out in the community or in any kind of environment that they're going into. So I think that's really important. That's a lesson that I've learned in the 18 years that I've kind of worked in education.
And I think for me, for the SAP program has helped me sort of keep my professional boundaries up, because if something, that something is wrong with a learner and they've got huge issues, and it is hard to park it and then go home, but it's really reassuring to know actually I haven't got to be the only one holding that person afloat, so if when I go home there is support available, and that is huge.
And I suppose it's the philosophy of protecting yourself to be able to protect them, and I know that's something that we advocate with our academic staff as well, in terms of an expectation, because there is this with social media and a culture of immediacy. Learners are expecting that support to arrive when they request it, as and when, and having our academic staff to also recognise that it's okay to not be online and not to be responding 24/7 to a learner who might have a different time schedule, lifestyle, etc. We all have lives beyond you, and as you said, sometimes they don't recognise the fact that we're people beyond our roles as well. Okay, so right at the top of the episode, then you mentioned about some of the challenges and the sort of diverse range of issues that you were dealing with. One of the concerning trends that we are seeing is around intimate imagery sharing. So how are you helping learners in terms of managing the expectation around maybe some of those requests or the need to share that type of imagery when sometimes trust and naivety in a relationship is a challenge?
Well, I think for me, with the young people, they almost feel like it's a given, if they're in a relationship, if, the girl or the lad asks for a nude, it's almost like, well, I haven't got a choice. So I try and empower the learner and say, you have got a choice. So sort of try and build on their self-worth and sort of not look at everyone else. Well, all my friends are doing it, so maybe I should do it. So to empower them to make sort of good informed decisions, sort of inwardly rather than externally. And I think if you sort of try and build on their confidence, their self-worth, their self-esteem, I think they would perhaps think, right, and then also tell them once that image is, sent, it is no longer yours. If you put that out to the world, there are going to be consequences.
Exactly.
Yeah,
I know
all control.
I know with Carol as well. So obviously you're dealing with a far more holistic perspective in terms of trying to support their wider development. You will often get hold of learners when they're in a crisis situation. So something's happened and they're looking for a fix, for want of a better word.
Yeah.
So how does it differ for your approach?
Yeah, so obviously for us, it's we've had cases here, where it could be like an historical image that's been sent, but it's still popping up like years later, because once, and I think they don't realise that once that's sent, then that's gone. They're never going to get that back. That's out there then, and regardless whether you think like you put in like on Snapchat or something where it's gone within 24 hours, like if that's like saved, that's it then, and that's shared and anyone can have it. And I don't think they realise like it has like such a massive like knock-on effect, for like years to come, like career-wise or anything, so, and then obviously then for us then it's like about getting police involvement then if they want that, that we sort of contact the police, and they obviously will try then and kind of investigate. We've had again this year with learners who if somebody's made a fake account of that learner and then posting like pictures and like derogatory comments and things on there, so and it just opens then up like a minefield. You having to obviously contact police. They constantly worry then that it's going to affect like their course, like depends like if they want to go to uni. So it does like have like a massive effect, because once that's out there and then you've got that like and that person then who's maybe had that picture, depending on age, then that's going to be classed as like child pornography. And they don't understand that. They think that it's just kind of like a picture going between like friends, but actually you've got that image, you are now you've got it on your phone, and you are, you've got pornography on your phone, and they don't realise the massive knock-on effect that could have, with like, their future and just like the repercussions of that. And I think it's trying to educate them on that and say, look, it's not you just send it, it's not like you just send a photo to like your boyfriend or whatever. Depending on your age, then you are, because we do have learners, who are dating like older, and it's so they never really understand that until it's too late. So I think it's trying to like educate them like early on. But again, it's difficult because everyone's got phones now, like even like primary school, kids have got phones and things, or access to kind of like some kind of sort of technology. So it's difficult to try and obviously educate them before they do it, where we deal with a lot where it's already happened, so you're having then to deal with the fallout of it. So you can't, you have to be then a little bit more sort of, can't be proactive at that point. Then you're gonna have to like, so it's difficult because they just don't think about things like that. And I guess like, why would you if you're 16, 17, but then it's us then to be able to like obviously ensure that they are thinking about things like that. So
I suppose it's a conflicting time for them as well, isn't it? Because at 16 they can consensually have an intimate relationship, but they're not yet considered an adult.
No.
And then under the Online Safety Act, which came out in 2023, late 23, you've got an emergence of some new prosecutable laws, which do include things like child sexual exploitation imagery, deep fake imagery, especially in sexual situations, where, as you're saying, you're getting some legacy imagery that is recycling and is potentially then re-traumatizing victims or whatever that might look like in a situation that's already been dealt with, and now it crops back up again. Yeah. And as you say, the fallout for that can be catastrophic.
Yeah, and I don't think they don't realise that once that's there then, that's going to be there forever. Somebody's always going to have, because, once that's been like screenshot and then shared, that person will share it, then that person will share, and it's just like literally it's just like a domino effect, when that photo is going to be somewhere, and like it popped up, and obviously then that learner is devastated all over again then, because what she thought was dealt with has now come back up, so it's difficult, isn't it? So,
or he in some instances.
Yeah. I think they live very much in the moment, and they don't realise the repercussions of what they do.
And of course, with ourselves, we can sometimes be confined to our roles and our remit in terms of what we can take on board and deal with. And I know you work with some local organisations like YEPS and the community sexual health teams. What sort of referral mechanisms do you have with organisations like, say, NSPCC and Childline that help support you when these situations arise, and maybe that learner is looking for a more immediate fix to a challenge? So let's say it is an image that is online, it's starting to appear on multiple platforms. What services do you have at your disposal?
Well, the NSPCC now have got the report remove, So I would go down that road. You know, then the Facebook, you can start to be removed. But it is hard to get on top of, because with myself, I wouldn't class myself as, you know, being digitally sound. So I would first go to them, but, you know, I would come to you because, you know, you being a digital wellbeing champion, I would always, you know, I think there is horses for courses, and I think that's what I would do. I would come, you know, I'd come straight to you and say, look, this has happened. You know, what's your advice?
Yeah, and I think, you know, when we reported things to the police as well, like they've got kind of like their own officers who are dealing with like specifically like cyber or like internet issues. Yeah. So that's really good then, because you've got kind of that dedicated officer then who can deal with that kind of thing, and is so you're not kind of dealing with like multiple like sort of police officers, or, you know, you've got that one person who is there to be able to deal with that solely. But again, I think it's about using what is in front of us as well, and using the resources that we've got available to us, like in-house. Like obviously, like we said before, like it's about working together, working with you, and you know, it's I think again, like we've said, it's about trying to educate before things happen, which sometimes is unrealistic because it's already happened. But I think we've got, like, you know, like we said, we've got loads of different places that we can signpost out to, and obviously in-house as well. So I think it's evolved so much now, isn't it? Like sort of like, you know, social media and what they can access, and like AI and everything like that. I think it's evolved so much. I think there are a lot more things out there now that can like help as well. There's a lot more different places that you can signpost to be able to support with that, because I think there has to be now, you know, there has to be people, it has to catch up with how quickly like technology is evolving. So I don't think we're there yet. I don't think that is the case yet, that we are kind of like caught up and, you know, we've got things kind of in place as we need them. But I think we are kind of getting there, and there are more people out there now that we can kind of signpost to.
And I think increasingly, take further education as an industry, it's starting to get a handle, but a lot of organisations are still working towards a model where educate to prevent, have appropriate internal intervention mechanisms, but also have those relationships of referral externally, because it goes beyond our capabilities. I know we've previously had like Tarian or cybersecurity teams in from local police services, and the regional cybercrime units have come in and been very supportive, and has actually gone a long way in reinforcing a lot of the messages that we are delivering as a sort of multidisciplinary team, but has also served to put a solution in place for a learner who might be dealing with a challenge or be in crisis, which I think is probably the most important factor. So in terms of then, if we think about the learner and sort of educational approaches and some of the stakeholders that are around the learner, like parents and other academic staff, what would you like to see put in place to try and help a learner, but looking at this sort of support network, how can we support people like their parents or academic staff that you think would add value to the situation?
I think it's about educating them as well, isn't it? You know, I think just educating and like the learner, that's just one part of it, you know, where if parents are not sure of what they're accessing, or how to maybe put it on privacy settings, or what they can actually do like on these kind of like social media platforms that they're accessing, then, you know, our work then is, you know, is only so much that obviously that we can do then, isn't it? So I think it's about educating, you know, and maybe putting like things on for parents, you know, like sort of workshops for parents to come in and be able to access them, like maybe on an evening or during like I don't know, like an open event or something, you know. And again, I think we've got a lot of young staff here, and I'm not trying to be like, you know, say that like older staff, but a lot of older staff probably don't have sort of these social media platforms, so they probably might not be as clued up as what you can do on them, what can potentially be the dangers of them. So again, it's having those conversations, educating them, so if a learner goes to them, they know what the potential risks are, where they need to be signposting, who they can go to. So again, then that support is put in place quickly, and we can hopefully then sort of de-escalate that situation before it becomes, you know, a major.
And just putting in like an appropriate baseline
you know,
for stakeholders.
Yeah.
I think some people also choose not to be on social media because they don't want to deal with sometimes the situations on there, the toxicity that can be on there. I know some staff who are quite digitally savvy, but make a conscious choice not to be in those environments. But like you say, giving them a baseline and trying to raise that level. Kat, any thoughts from you?
I think our learners sort of react well to sort of people coming in with lived experience, because I think it's all right to tell them sort of the pitfalls and the dangers, and sometimes it just falls on deaf ears. But I found in the past to have somebody actually in with lived experience of, look, this is what happened to me, I think it hits home a bit stronger. You know, it's more real to them, it's more real life. So perhaps I would be looking to have external people in to say their story, and I know that's worked with other areas in the past, because I know for a fact, like I'm a parent of a teenager, and from a really, really young age, she was much more tech savvy than myself, you know, and it is scary. And, you know, I suppose I can hold my hands up and said probably my daughter had socials younger than the age, you know, the age, because I felt peer pressure from others saying, oh, well, my daughter's on it, and perhaps if your daughter's not on it, it will be the fear of missing out, and you do feel pressure from that. So I can really empathise with other parents for putting, you know, or letting their children have socials younger than perhaps government says they should, because you do feel under pressure. So it's okay to point the finger and say, oh, well, you know, she's too young, but knowing the pressure behind it is tough.
I will say for you as well, I mean, I know, you know, we've spoken previously, you have also been curiously proactive around that as well. You know, yes, maybe on social media too early, never necessarily advocate that, but you've also gone, how can I best protect as well? So what can I put in place around my child to make sure that I can see what's going on, but also I can protect her from some of the things that maybe she's, you know, not necessarily ready for. Okay, great. So to try and wrap things up a little bit then, if you had the opportunity to give, let's say, one golden nugget around these topics to maybe educators or parents or learners, so you pick whichever, what would be your one sort of golden nugget takeaway? If there's one piece of advice you want somebody to work with?
I think for me, it would be think before you do anything, you know, and think about the repercussions that is going to have on you, because, you know, that kind of one click of the thing, like, you know, one click of the finger, sending that image, that's out there then, and that's going to have so many repercussions. And I think, you know, I think we are maybe like a nation who thinks like it never happened to me, but actually it can, and it does, you know. And I think we've got to kind of get past that now. I think we've got to be a bit more realistic and saying, actually, yeah, it can happen to you. You're not kind of like sort of
not exempt from.
Yeah, you're not exempt from doing that. You know, you're not exempt from that. It can happen to anyone. It can happen to us as hard as it can happen to you. So I think before you do it. Think, you know, are you potentially going to ruin your future career, or, you know, future in anything really, if you send that, because once that photo or image or whatever you were doing is gone, then that's it. Then it's out there, and that can pop up years later, you know, and it would, you know, have a negative impact on you know, careers and things and relationships, anything really. So I think, yeah, think before you do anything on social media.
Okay, Kat, anything from you?
I would say yes, there are dark sides to you know, digital technology, but also it can be really positive to lift your well-being as well. So it, you know, I suppose there's good and bad in everything, but I would say, you know, for your mental health, that using certain technologies can be really good.
I think the one from me would be, given, you know, the understanding of the support mechanisms that are available, especially in the college or us as well, is if challenges occurs, don't be afraid to ask. You know, come and find that trusted individual, and that could be, you know, that could be a peer that sat next to them who they feel comfortable talking to. Have that initial conversation, ask for support, be it from, you know, something's happened, or I'm being blackmailed, I'm being bullied, whatever it might be. and seek the support that you need. And that's often the bravest decision to make. And people, I always speak to people, they'll tend to find things will start to resolve much quicker having taken that initial step. And I think that's important, especially with your service, because I know how professional, not just yourselves, but the whole team are when it comes to working with learners, and how proactive you are with giving that support.
Yeah, asking for help is not a weakness, you know, it really isn't. It's the bravest thing perhaps you will ever do.
And there's a resolution for everything, isn't there? You know, you can sort everything, but, you know, there's no point in trying to do it alone when, you know, you've got that help there. So once you take that step of asking for help, then, you know, we can get involved and we can, you know, do things and signposts, and then hopefully then, you know, it won't go as far as maybe if they'd left and not said anything, you know, and we can kind of like nip her in the bud before it gets to a point where, you know, it's, well, more dangerous than potentially it is already. So,
well, can I say thank you both, and thank you for joining us over a brew, and it's been lovely chatting to you, and I hope our listeners and our viewers take a lot from this and are able to put something in place to help others in the FE sector. Thank you very much.
Thank you.